Hi, my name is Becky. I'm a Christian and I have ADHD and bipolar type 2. And this is video number 4 where I'm telling my story, sharing what it's like to be a Christian, having undiagnosed ADHD and bipolar type 2 for most of my life. I was diagnosed at age 36. I was already married and had 4 kids. I'm sharing the story of how me and my husband got together. My dad was discipling him. I shared that already. And my dad really thought a lot about him. He really liked him and he thought he was a really good guy. And I had some crazy ideas of what biblical womanhood looked like. I was very extreme. I'd already shared how when I was just obsessed with the Bible, it was like uber legalistic. I really wanted to just figure out the code of how to have a rule for every single area of life and have a nice big long comprehensive list of how to be a good Christian, and then I would know exactly what to do in every single circumstance. And for me as an unmarried woman, I had to be like totally submissive to my dad, and I wanted him to pick out my husband. So I talked to my dad of, I want you to pick out my husband. Who do you think I'd be good with? Who do you think would be good for me? And he'd say, oh, Josh, he's a really good guy. I think you ought to give him a chance. Because Josh was interested in me, but I was not interested in him. Well, not into the nerd culture. Maybe I shouldn't call it nerd and geek. I don't know what else to call it. And now that I'm in that group, we call ourselves nerds and geeks, so I don't really, I hope it's not offensive. I'm sorry if I've offended anybody. What was I talking about? So my dad said, I want you to give Josh a chance. And Josh, he doesn't really care how he looks. He doesn't care what people think about him. So, like, he was clean, but like he didn't, you know, his hair grew long, his beard grew long, he just wore whatever clothes, like, he really didn't care how he looked, and he didn't care what people thought about him. So, he did not look attractive. So I was like, he's not my type. And, so this went on a couple times of me being like, oh, Dad, I want you to pick out my husband, who should I marry? And he'd be like, Josh, give Josh a chance. So eventually my dad is like, Beck, you keep asking me. And I'm saying give Josh a chance. I just go on, you know, just date him. Just give him a few dates and just give him a chance. So I'm like, okay, well, how long do I have to do this for? And he's like, how about 3 months? You know, 1 or 2 dates a week, you know, just give it a fair chance. So I'm like, okay, fine, I can do that. So the very first date, I really liked him. I really liked being with him, and I realized, like, yeah, I could live the rest of my life with this guy. Distractions. So I'm like, yeah, I could totally see myself with this guy for the rest of my life. And if my kids end up being like him, I'd be okay with that, because I like him. I'd be very happy if my sons end up like him someday. My future sons, you know, my hypothetical sons. I mean, right then I was like, yeah, I can marry this guy. And it wasn't too long before I was like, okay, I do want to marry him, but I just do not like the way he looks. So it just, you know, it's just like this conflict of, I like him on the inside and I don't like him on the outside, but I mean, when you're married, you're supposed to be doing you know what, and so I was just like, maybe I'll just go ahead and marry him. Because, I mean, people who get married and then, you know, years go by, you know, they're still happily married, even if one of them just doesn't look as nice as they used to. So I was like, I'll just have to just go with it and just wait until I just don't care anymore, and then it will be great. So, my sister was dating his brother at the time, and we ended up getting married 2 months apart. My sister made some comment about, like, us, you know, someday both, you know, being married and stuff, and I didn't correct her. So Josh, you know, he was like, oh, okay, so Becky actually does want to marry me now. So we had some conversation at some point, and he was saying something like that he was gonna try to get out of debt before he got married, and you know, he had a school loan and it was gonna be so many years before it was paid off and stuff. So I just started freaking out inside of like, oh my gosh, years. Like, I was thinking get married this year or just 1 year, but like, I don't want to date for years, you know, because I'm thinking, oh, well, you know, as soon as you start holding hands, then you start kissing, and as soon as you start kissing, then you start downhill slide from there, and then, you know. So I was like, as I called him up one day, and I was like, I don't think, you know, I could date for years, so I think we gotta break up and then maybe get together again once you're out of debt. So he's like, okay, well, how about I take you out, you know, for dessert and stuff, and we just talk about it. Like, don't do anything rash until then. We went to this local restaurant and we're sitting there, and he's like, so I know you used to not want to marry me, but I'm guessing that's different now. And I was like, yeah. So he's like, okay, so here's my plan. I'm gonna talk to your dad, and you know, he had this whole plan of like how it was gonna go. That, you know, he's gonna talk to my dad, you know, engagement, and then the wedding and marriage, and where we're gonna live. And I heard, I wasn't really paying attention because I'm like inside, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like for real, it's official. Like, we're actually getting married. Like, we're actually agreed on. But like, yeah, that's our engagement story. That was his proposal. Yeah, it very, very strange dating and engagement. So we got married. My plan was to be the perfect wife and then the perfect mother, and to get pregnant right away and have as many babies as I could have. And then I was going to write a book or have a blog or something, and then tell all the mothers how I did it right, and then they could do it just like me. And so I got pregnant like, I don't know, 2 or 3 months after we got married. And then when my first baby was 17 months old, my second was born. And then he was like 21 months when the third was born. And then I had a miscarriage between him and my last. The first 3 were boys, and then the last one was a girl. And I did not know that I had ADHD and bipolar type 2 this whole time. So the overwhelm was getting worse, the stress was getting worse, the depression was getting worse, and turns out pregnancy hormones are pretty bad for people with bipolar type 2, or at least it can be, and it definitely was for me. With each one, it got worse and worse. And then with my fourth, I really felt like I was trapped inside of a crazy person's body. It was so bad. I just have this clear memory of being at the stove trying to make dinner, and I just couldn't even. I'm just there and I'm just overwhelmed and I'm just crying and I just cannot even make dinner. And Josh is like, just go in the bedroom, it's fine, I'll order pizza. So I'm in the bedroom and I'm just crying, and I hear him ordering pizza, and I was just overwhelmed with guilt because I can't manage to just do normal household responsibilities. We have to spend extra money on takeout, and it just, I mean, it wasn't a new feeling for me. I mean, I've just all the way through just feeling like I wasn't a good enough wife, not a good enough mother, not a good enough house cleaner, because the house was always messy, not a good enough cook, because I can't make meals to be delicious and nutritious and costly, you know, within a budget, and not a good enough sex partner, and just, I mean, everything in my head of what a perfect wife and mother looked like, I wasn't measuring up, and I was so disappointed in myself and very depressed. And it got worse and worse until it was postpartum of my fourth, of when I just finally just gave up, and I was just like, God, I just can't do this anymore. I cannot do what I've been doing all along. Whatever I'm doing is not working. I'm not getting any better. And I've been a depressed mom for so long, and I don't want my kids to be raised by a depressed mother. I want them to be raised by a healthy mother. And I just was like, I will do whatever, I'll do anything. I just want you to help me. Just make it better. And I just had this understanding. I just knew I gotta go see a therapist. I need to get professional help. I need to go talk to a counselor. And that just started the trajectory of just continued healing and growth and learning and just getting better and better. In the next video, I'll talk more about how God has helped me and healed me, just met me where I was at and just had mercy on me. I hope this has been encouraging to anyone who can relate. I think a lot of us moms feel like we're not good enough. I think especially moms with ADHD just feel like I'm just not like the typical mom. Yeah, this video's gone long enough, so I'll just end it here and I'll start with the next.